Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. This video, I'm going to give you an in-depth look at the recently released Sinn 556i RS. And while there weren't many new watches released in 2020 because Baselworld was cancelled, it's nice to see that Sinn released the RS line, which has the red-tipped seconds hand. And another nice thing I discovered is that a subscriber on my channel actually mentioned that there is now a Canadian authorized dealer for Sinn, and it is JVare Jewelers. And I just wanted to give them a quick shout out because I was able to interact with them directly to buy this watch brand new. Even though they're located out west in Calgary, they shipped this watch to me in Ontario the next day, and they even hooked me up with some free swag. So I got the Sinn travel pouch, which is really cool. And I got a nice Sinn pen as well. So I'll also throw a link to their website in the description of this video. If you're Canadian like me and you don't want to get hit with import duties buying it from the other North American dealer watch buys in the States, I highly recommend you check them out. So as I'm sure some of you are aware, the 556 is considered more of an entry-level Sinn mid-sized pilot watch, but for me it's one of the best everyday watches that just seems to be extremely versatile. And this is especially true with the upgraded version that they have here. I guess when I say upgraded, very minor differences between the past iterations. Most notably, you do have that red-tipped seconds hand. And then the other upgrade, I'm not sure how well it shows up under my studio lights, but the black dial is now a really nice glossy finish that just helps that red seconds hand pop a little more. Now I've owned other 556s in the past. I've owned the 556A, which had the quarter Arabics on the dial, and with the 556i, that just stands for indices. So you can see that this dial is very symmetrical with simple batons for all the hour markers. And if you're wondering why I moved away from the 556A that I had, it's actually because I did something crazy this year. And I picked up one of my Grail watches, the Rolex Explorer, 39 millimeters, and it has a very similar dial layout. So I did want to get a Sinn 556 back in the collection, and I'm very happy to get the latest release from them. Now compared to the previous iterations of the 556, this watch maintains the similar dimensions. So you're looking at about 38.5 millimeters across the case. Flipping to the side, lug to lug between my thumbs here is very compact at about 45 millimeters. Case thickness comes in a hair over 13 millimeters to a flat sapphire crystal. And this sapphire crystal is double treated with AR coating. So there's anti-reflective treatment on the bottom and top side of the crystal, which just seems to disappear at times. And then the lug gap here to fit this bracelet or aftermarket strap options is a very nice universal 20 millimeters at the head of the watch here. And then this bracelet does taper down to about 18 mils at the clasp. Personally, I think the dial is what really makes this such a great everyday watch. You know, you have the glossy black finish with the high contrast of white printing for all the hour markers and the minute track, as well as the hour and minute hand. I like how symmetrical everything is on this watch, and the amount of writing is very minimal. You do have Sinn written at the 12 o'clock position there, and then closer to the 6 o'clock, you have automatic written in German. And then if you look very closely near the bottom of the dial, it does say made in Germany. Now, in contrast to the Sinn 556A, I do like the placement of the date aperture for this watch better. It's right at the 3 o'clock position, and you can see that they truncated that 3 o'clock indice to allow that date window to be there. Now, the case finishing remains very similar to other 556 models too. You have mostly a satin finish. Do note that there are drilled lug holes, which makes changing for a strap very easy to do, and this watch is a strap monster. The overall case finishing does still play with the light fairly well. Even though there's no high polish on the case, I do think that just the level and detail of brushing is done to a very, very high standard at this price point. I'm also a big fan of the Sinn crown, which is oversized and screwed in, giving this watch a staggering 200 meters of water resistance. So if you need to manually wind the Swiss automatic movement, you just unwind the crown and it's very simple to do. If you do pop this out in the intermediate position, that's your quick date setting feature. And then if you pop it all the way out, you can see I just hacked the movement and you can set to any reference time you like. Now rethreading the crown is extremely easy to do because it's knurled very well. And the automatic movement powering this watch is a top grade Sellita SW200, which you can actually see through the exhibition case back here. So you can see I still have my original caseback sticker on here, but with Sinn, typically they have a custom gold rotor on their Sellita movements. And they also did some nice finishes to the back of the movement. You can see there's some blued screws. And they do regulate these movements quite well. Anecdotally, this watch is only losing 1 second per day, which is operating within cost specifications. Now, if we go back to the bracelet, this H-link is probably the best in the business. One of the reasons I say that is because the articulation is so good. You get a very nice drape. And sizing the individual links is done with double-sided hex screws, which is extremely secure, and unlike slot screws or other pin and collar systems, you're not going to mar your links trying to size it because the supplied hex tools fit very well. Now the clasp I think could use a little bit of refinement, but overall it performs very well. Again, very nice brushing detail on the clasp, and you do have the Sinn signed in the center. It's just a simple flip lock here. And opening this up, you do have nicely milled out swing arms here. There are 3 layers of micro adjustment. And surprisingly, there's also a very well executed diver's extension, which I don't think a lot of people utilize, but I can appreciate it now that we're in the hot summer months. My wrist does swell, and that does provide some relief getting this watch on and off my wrist. Speaking of which, here's a quick wrist shot for you on my 19 centimeter circumference wrist, or about 7.5 inches. And while this is on the smaller side for me, the overall design and legibility of this watch, even though it does have a smaller dial, makes it extremely comfortable. I feel like if you needed to dress this up, you could by throwing it on a nice leather strap. And if you want to go more casual, you could even throw it on like a rubber or a NATO, and it would work just as well. And lastly, the low light legibility for this watch is spectacular as well. I believe they're using like a C1 Superluminova formulation, and I'll show you guys a low light shot now. But the lume is pretty intense on the hour markings and on the handset. I do wish it was a little more evenly applied to the hands, but overall you're going to have no problems reading this guy in the dark. Now, as far as subtle improvements that they could make moving forward with this watch, I do wish that they elongated the seconds hand a little bit so it reaches the very periphery of the dial there, similar to what you find on the Rolex Explorer. And while I do love the symmetry of the dial, I do wish they could have added like a double baton at the 12 o'clock position just to help with orientation. Now, as far as pricing goes, this runs just over 1,800 Canadian dollars, but you might be able to get slightly lower on the used market. But I do think that Sinns do retain their value fairly well. And at that price point, the sub $2,000 price point, it is one of the best everyday watches in my opinion. But guys, I'd love to hear your feedback in the comments below. What do you guys think of the RS lineup from Sinn? Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video, and as always, I'll catch you guys in the next one.